The morning light had only just begun to settle across Los Angeles, soft and gold like a quiet apology for all the noise this city usually carried. Elon walked without a destination, a rare moment when his mind wasn't already 5 conversations and 12 deadlines ahead. He had left his phone behind on purpose. Some days, even the smartest man in the world needed silence more than solutions. People noticed him, of course. They always did. A whisper here, a quick glance there. But no one approached. Everyone was used to seeing him as something large, something untouchable, an idea more than a man. In a city full of dreamers, people forgot that the ones who dreamed the biggest often lived the loneliest. He took the winding path through the park, where the trees arched overhead as if forming a cathedral of green. The breeze was cool. The world felt almost still. That was when he saw her. A small figure sitting alone on a weathered wooden bench near a dry fountain basin. Her legs didn't touch the ground. They swung back and forth as if she were trying to keep time with a song only she could hear. The girl couldn't have been more than 8. Her hair was tied in 2 uneven ponytails, and she wore a faded yellow dress that looked like it had once belonged to someone older. Taller, but it was the sign she held that stopped him. Just a piece of cardboard, handwritten, shaky letters. Nothing desperate about it. No bold pleas. No dramatic flourishes. Just a truth laid bare, looking for a dad for the father-daughter school dance. No begging, no crying. Just waiting. The world moved around her the way water moves around a stone, splitting, diverting, flowing past. People walked by, glancing but never stopping. They saw her, but they didn't see her. Elon stood still, something inside him tightening, sharp, immediate, undeniable. No news article had ever shaken him like this. No global criticism, no market crash, no loss on a stock chart, not even failure. This was something else. Something human. He approached slowly, as if afraid the moment might break if he moved too quickly. The girl looked up. Her eyes were bright but tired, not the tired that comes from lack of sleep, but the kind that comes from waiting for something that may never happen, and choosing to hope anyway. He cleared his throat, carefully lowering his voice. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though clearly she wasn't. "Yes, I'm just waiting." He hesitated. "Waiting for who?" "My dad," she said. "Not sadly, just factually." Like weather, he swallowed. "Is he coming?" She looked down at her shoes, scuffed, dirt along the seams. "He was supposed to." She traced her finger along the cardboard. "But he's not." Mom said sometimes people change their minds. There was no bitterness in her voice, just acceptance. The kind of acceptance that no child should ever know. Elon sat beside her, not too close. Close enough to show he wasn't leaving. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amelia," she said. He nodded slowly, letting the name settle. "Amelia," he repeated like it mattered. "Well, I'm Elon." Her eyes widened a fraction, not because of fame, but because he spoke his own name like an offering, like he wasn't sure she'd take it. She blinked. "Do you have kids?" The question landed like a stone dropped into deep water, quiet, heavy, unavoidable. "Yes," he said. His voice didn't sound like his voice. "I do. Do they dance with you?" she asked. He looked at his hands, the hands that built rockets, cars, futures, and realized he didn't know when they had last held something small. Fragile. Precious. "No," he whispered. The breeze rustled the cardboard between them. Amelia smiled. Small and sad and brave. "Maybe," she said, "you could practice with me until someone comes." The park was silent, and for the first time in a very, very long time, Elon did not think. He felt. He wasn't sure how long he sat there, only that the sun shifted and the shadows stretched, and still he remained beside her. Amelia swung her feet again, a soft rhythm, as though she was trying to keep her courage from sliding out of her small body. The sign rested across her lap now, its edges frayed, the cardboard thin from being held too many times. It looked like it had been folded and unfolded, carried through places where maybe she hoped someone would care enough to ask. Elon drew a slow breath. The kind that feels like it's coming from somewhere beneath the ribs, where grief hides when it has nowhere else to go. "What made you write the sign?" he asked. She shrugged, but it was the kind of shrug children give when the answer is too big for words. "My school is having this dance. Everyone is bringing their dad." She glanced up at him, cautious, as though she were waiting to see if her truth would push him away. "I didn't want to stay home. I didn't want to be the only one who didn't have someone." Her voice wavered but didn't break. It was strength learned too early. "My mom said I could ask." She swallowed. "So, I asked." Elon stared at the dry fountain in front of them. Once beautiful, now cracked, vines creeping along its edges. He knew something about things that once shined and then didn't. The world believed his life was full of glittering surfaces, launch pads, award stages, conference halls. But there were pieces of him with cracks too deep to mend, places where laughter used to echo, replaced now by silence. He had always believed love was something you could return to later, like a meeting you postponed, something waiting, patient, somewhere past the success and the headlines. But children don't wait. Childhood doesn't pause. He turned toward her. "Where's your mom now?" "She's working, at the diner on Riverside. But she says I can wait here." Her legs slowed, the soft swinging stopping entirely. She said maybe someone might care enough to ask. The words landed like quiet thunder. Care enough. Care enough. He felt something burn behind his sternum, something that had been dormant, maybe even dead. His mind flickered to memories, birthday candles blown out without him, drawings taped to office doors he never walked through, little shoes lined neatly by a mudroom he rarely entered. He stood, not abruptly, deliberately. Amelia watched him with wide, steady eyes, the kind that have already learned the shape of disappointment. He smoothed his jacket, then held out his hand. "Well," he said softly, "it seems I'm here, and I would like to care." She blinked. Once. Twice. Her small hand slipped into his like it had always belonged there. But he didn't pick up the sign. He knelt down and folded it carefully, as if it were a letter someone had written straight from their heart. "No more holding this alone," he murmured. They began walking toward the exit of the park, her steps bouncing to keep up with his. People stared, whispers floating like wind chimes, but neither of them noticed. The city knew Elon Musk. But Amelia? Amelia was the first person in a long time who saw him, not the inventor, not the billionaire, just a man who finally stopped long enough to feel the absence in his own life. Halfway down the sidewalk, she spoke again, her voice small but sure. "Do you think dads can learn?" He looked down at her, eyes bright like sunrise after too many dark seasons. "Yes," he said. "I think dads learn by showing up." And for the first time in years, he realized he was finally on his way somewhere that mattered. They walked together through the late morning streets, the world moving around them in fast currents, cars honking, bicycles weaving, conversations overlapping like static. But for Elon and Amelia, everything seemed to slow, as though time itself understood that something delicate and unspoken was forming between them. Amelia held his hand the way children do when they have been disappointed too many times, lightly, ready to let go if needed, not trusting yet, not fully, but hoping. Hope was all she had ever really owned. They reached the diner just as the lunch rush was gathering. The building was old, the kind of place that had weathered years of grease and laughter and heartbreak. The neon sign flickered in tired red letters, Alina's place, though half the letters were burned out so it only read, Ian's Ace. Inside, waitresses moved between tables with practiced grace, balancing plates stacked high with pancakes, eggs, omelets. A coffee machine hissed like something breathing. The smell of hash browns and syrup clung to the air like a familiar hug. Amelia let go of his hand only when she spotted her mother. She ran forward, weaving past chairs and customers until she pressed herself against Elena's apron. Elena turned sharply, startled. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, strands falling loose. Sleepless circles shaded her eyes. Her hands, rough from scrubbing and hot water and work that never ended, went still when she saw Amelia. And then her face changed when she saw who stood behind her. Her expression didn't show awe or fascination. It showed fear, not fear of him, fear of hope. "Amelia," she murmured tightly, kneeling. "Where were you? I told you not to." "She wasn't alone," Elon said quietly. "I was with her." Elena straightened slowly, wiping flour and grease on her apron. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp, evaluating every inch of him. "Mr. Musk," she said, not with excitement, with caution. "People like you don't walk into places like this without a reason." "I didn't come here for cameras," he said. "There weren't any." Her jaw clenched. "There are always cameras when it comes to you, even when you don't see them." The words held history, not his, hers. She put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, protective but gentle. "Amelia has learned how to be strong. She understands that people don't stay forever." Amelia looked down at her shoes. Elon felt something twist inside him. "I want to take her to the dance," he said, voice low, steady. "If you allow it." Elena's hands stilled again. The diner noise faded. Even the coffee machine seemed to hush. "You don't owe us anything," she said. "I don't want charity, I don't want headlines, and I don't want my daughter to be someone's good deed for the week." Her voice cracked, not in weakness, but in truth. "If you walk away later, she will believe it's her fault." Elon lowered his gaze, not because he was ashamed, but because he understood. "I don't make promises lightly," he said. "But I'm not here to fix her. I'm here because she fixed something in me." Elena froze. The honesty in his words was the kind that didn't need proof. It needed time. Amelia looked between them, wide eyes searching both faces, as though the entire world hung on the next breath. Then, very slowly, Elena nodded. "Friday, 7 o'clock. Relief did not rush in like a flood. It came like a breath, small, quiet, real. Amelia exhaled, a sound that was almost a laugh. Elon smiled, not the kind the world knew, the one for cameras and speeches and presentations. This smile was something gentler, something starting, something being repaired. The days that followed unfolded with a strange, quiet magic, like the world had decided to slow down for them, just enough to let something gentle take root. Elon found himself returning to the park, not out of obligation, but out of something far simpler and far more difficult to admit. He wanted to. For years, his life had been measured in deadlines, launches, innovations, problems solved before most people could name them. But now, his mornings began with a walk to a wooden bench where a little girl waited with a sketchbook and the unspoken hope that he would come back today. Too, she always did, and so did he. On the third morning, he brought something with him, a small speaker, scratched from years of being carried around in the trunk of one car or another. He set it down on the ground near the fountain and looked at Amelia, who was coloring a picture of a rocket with a girl riding on top. "You ever danced before?" he asked. She looked up, blinking. "Not really. I don't know how." He nodded, as though this was exactly the answer he expected. "Good," he said softly. "Then we'll learn together." He opened his phone, hesitated, then searched for a song he hadn't listened to in a very long time. A soft guitar melody drifted into the air, something warm and slow, the kind of song you play when you want to remember what it feels like to have a heartbeat. Amelia stood, her dress fluttering in the breeze. She held out her hands awkwardly, unsure where to place them. He crouched to her height and guided her gently. "This hand goes here," he murmured, placing her fingers on the sleeve of his coat. "And the other hand goes in mine." She slipped her small hand into his, and for a moment, everything in him stilled. Time didn't stop. But grief, just for a second, loosened its grip. They moved slowly at first, his steps careful and hers uneven. She stepped on his shoes twice and giggled both times. He laughed. A real laugh, unpolished, unplanned, almost surprised by its own sound. "You're not very good at this," she announced. He smiled. "I know, I'll get better." Children nearby stopped playing. A jogger slowed his pace. A couple sitting beneath a tree turned to watch. Not because they recognized him, though maybe they did, but because there was something undeniably tender in the scene. A man learning how to be gentle again, and a child learning how to trust. After a few minutes, Amelia leaned back slightly to look up at him. "Do dads practice too?" His throat tightened. "The good ones do." She nodded, seeming to store that somewhere safe. They practiced every day that week. Sometimes they danced. Sometimes they just talked. About school, about stars, about things she wished for and things he lost. She told him she liked purple popsicles best. He told her he once let a rocket explode and laughed about it later. She said that was silly. Rockets weren't supposed to explode. He said sometimes mistakes are how we learn. On Thursday, the inevitable happened. Someone filmed them. A passerby with a phone. A whisper of recognition. A video uploaded without thought. By nightfall, the clip was everywhere. Elon Musk dances with little girl in public park. Who is she? The world reacted instantly. Curiosity, awe, suspicion, headlines spinning like thrown coins. But the next morning in the park, Amelia just looked at him and asked, "Are you still here?" He didn't answer with words. He held out his hand. She took it, and they kept dancing. On Friday evening, the sky over Los Angeles glowed with a warm apricot haze, the sun dipping behind distant palm trees like a curtain gently falling before the show. The school gymnasium was already alive with music, laughter echoing through the halls, the unmistakable squeak of polished shoes on a waxed floor, sparkly dresses swaying beneath strings of paper lanterns. To most, it was just a school event. To Amelia, it was the night she had been waiting for. She stood in her bedroom, staring at the pale lavender dress laid out on her bed. It wasn't new. It wasn't fancy. But she smoothed it lovingly, as though it were something magical. Her mother helped zip the back, her hands steady but her eyes shining. "You look beautiful," Elena whispered. Amelia didn't ask if he would come. She didn't say anything. She just smiled in a small, trembling way, as though smiling too hard might break the moment. Outside, a car pulled up. Not expensive, not flashy. Elon had chosen that on purpose. No driver, no cameras, no entourage, just him. The way a father arrives. He stood at the door for a moment, adjusting his tie. He had worn suits in front of presidents, kings, journalists, billionaires, but his hands had never shaken the way they did now. When the door opened, and Amelia stepped forward in her lavender dress, something inside him simply dissolved. She didn't run to him. She walked, head high, proud, brave, like a child choosing her future. "You clean up pretty nice," she said, trying to sound casual. He laughed softly. "You look like starlight." Her cheeks flushed pink. Behind her, Elena leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, not in suspicion anymore, but in something closer to hope. She nodded once to him. He nodded back. They drove to the school with the windows down, the warm air lifting Amelia's hair as she hummed along to a song playing softly through the speakers. Elon didn't speak. He didn't need to. Just being there was enough. When they reached the gym, the noise hit them. Music, chatter, laughter. But the moment they stepped inside, the whispers began. "That's him. What's he doing here? Is this a PR stunt?" Poor child, she doesn't know. Amelia's hand tightened around his, so small yet so strong. Her breath hitched, just enough for him to feel. He lowered himself to her height, the lights of the gym shimmering across the lenses of his glasses. "Look at me," he said softly. She did. "I'm here with you." "Not them," her eyes steadied. Her shoulders lifted. She nodded. The music changed. Something slow, something meant for soft steps and shared moments. Amelia placed her hand on his arm, her other small palm fitting into his. He led her gently to the center of the dance floor, though it felt like the world was holding its breath around them. They began to dance. The room watched, first in silence, then in something like awe. Her dress spun softly around her, catching the light like a quiet shimmer. His movements, once stiff and awkward, became smoother as she guided him, because she did. She taught him how to follow joy. Halfway through the song, Amelia rested her head against his chest. "I can hear your heart," she whispered. He closed his eyes. "It remembers how to feel," he answered. One by one, other fathers began to dance again. The whispers faded. The staring stopped. Something shifted, not in the room, but in him. When the song ended, a small applause rose, then grew, then swelled into something larger than approval, something like understanding. Elon looked down. Amelia was smiling. Not the small, careful smile she always gave to protect herself, but a smile full, bright, unguarded, a smile that said, "Someone showed up and stayed." The applause had barely faded when the moment shifted, subtle at first, then unmistakable. As the song ended and parents returned to conversations, glances turned sharper, whispers grew bolder, and the air thickened with curiosity, sharpened into judgment. The gym was full of smiles, yes, but some of those smiles carried teeth. Elon felt it before he heard it. A group of fathers near the refreshments table leaned in close to one another. Their voices low but not low enough. He's trying to fix his reputation. He probably brought a camera crew. Good publicity play. Sad the kid doesn't realize it. Amelia didn't hear them, but her mother, standing near the gym doors, did. Elena's jaw tightened, her hand closing around the strap of her purse until her knuckles whitened. Elon did not turn. He didn't need to. He'd learned long ago how to read rooms the way sailors read storms, but instead of reacting, he knelt to Amelia's level again. "You want some punch?" he asked, his voice easy, steady. She nodded happily. "Yeah, the pink one. It tastes like cotton candy but also soap," he laughed. "Perfect combination." She dashed off toward the refreshment bowls, her dress fluttering like a lavender cloud. It was then that the school principal approached, tall, composed, with the polite smile schools keep for donors and problems they don't want to deal with. "Mr. Musk," she began, hands folded so tightly her knuckles trembled. "May I speak with you privately?" Of course, he thought. There's always someone who believes kindness must be managed like a liability. He followed her to a hallway just outside the gym. The music was muffled now, the laughter distant. "I hope you understand," Principal Ramsey said carefully. "We've received concerns." He waited. "Some parents feel," she continued, eyes flicking away, "that your presence might bring unwanted attention to the children here." Elon's expression didn't change. "You mean Amelia?" She flinched slightly. "No, well, not only. The media is unpredictable. We need to protect the students." "And the school," he said gently. Without accusation, she lowered her gaze. "Exposed." He spoke quietly. Not powerful, not defensive, just real. "I didn't bring press. I didn't post videos. I didn't call attention to myself. I came because she asked for someone. And I showed up." The principal's breath shook, just slightly. Because in that moment, she saw what many people refused to see. This wasn't about grandeur. This wasn't about redemption. This was about one child. Before she could respond, a voice echoed down the hall, soft but unwavering. If he leaves, I'm leaving too. They turned. Amelia stood there, a plastic cup of pink punch trembling in her hand. Her tiny chin lifted the way children do when they are choosing to be brave. The hallway seemed to hold its breath. He showed up, she said, looking directly at the principal. And nobody else ever did. Not once. Silence. The principal's face melted, not out of embarrassment, not out of pressure, but out of something far simpler. Humanity. She nodded. Of course. You're both welcome to stay. Amelia smiled, relief spilling across her face like sunlight breaking through clouds. As they walked back toward the gym, Amelia slipped her hand into Elon's, small and certain. Do you think they'll always talk? She asked, voice small. Yes, he said honestly. People talk about things they don't understand. She was quiet for a moment. Will you stay anyway? And for the first time in his life, he did not consider the consequences. Or the cameras. Or the headlines. Or the boardrooms. He simply answered like a man who had found the one truth that mattered. Yes, he said. I will stay, Amelia. I will stay. The weeks that followed should have been quiet. They should have settled into something small and simple. Dance night behind them, life returning to its usual shape. But life, especially when tied to a name like Elon Musk, rarely moved quietly. By Monday morning, his inbox was already burning. Headlines spread like wildfire. Elon Musk takes fatherless girl to school dance. Genius or manipulator? Internet debates motives behind viral video. Is it redemption or PR? Comment sections frothed and boiled. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them cared about the truth. In boardrooms high above the city, men in suits looked at this story not with their hearts, but with numbers. With consequences. With fear. Public sympathy is unpredictable. Stock value could fluctuate. Media attention could become uncontrollable. By Wednesday, Elon was facing his board in a glass conference room overlooking a skyline he once believed he owned. The room smelled like tension, polished steel, and expensive coffee. One board member adjusted his tie. Elon, we understand the emotional situation, truly, but this involvement is attracting attention we can't manage. Another leaned forward. You are a global figure. Your image influences markets, political relationships, national projects. A third didn't bother with gentleness. You cannot attach yourself to a random child. It risks everything you've built. Elon said nothing for a long time. He remembered Amelia on the dance floor, her head resting against his chest. He remembered her whisper, "Will you stay anyway?" He remembered his answer. He exhaled slowly. "Everything I've built," he said, "means nothing if I can't look a child in the eye and say I stayed." The board stared. "You're jeopardizing your legacy," one warned. Elon stood. "No," he replied. "I'm redefining it." He walked out, not stormed, not fled. Walked, like a man stepping out of a burning house he no longer wished to live in. That evening, he drove to the diner again. The bell above the door chimed softly as he entered. Elena looked up, but this time there was no guarded tension. She just waited. He sat across from her in a booth, the vinyl seat sticking slightly to his shirt. No entourage, no press, just a man who had finally stopped running. "I left the company today," he said. Elena's breath caught. You walked away from all of that?" "No," he corrected gently. "I walked toward something else." She stared at him, eyes softening, not with pity, but understanding. Understanding the cost of choosing love over reputation. Amelia slid into the booth beside him, her coloring book tucked under her arm. She leaned against him like it was the most natural thing in the world. "What are you going to do now?" she asked, swinging her legs. Elon looked at her. The little girl who reminded him that the universe was not built by rockets, or companies, or ideas. It was built by connection. "I'm going to build something new," he said. "Something that helps children who don't have someone to show up for them." Amelia's eyes widened, glowing like stars rising into twilight. "What will it be called?" She asked. He smiled. "Dads Who Show Up." And in that booth, under flickering diner lights and the smell of coffee and warm bread, a movement was born. Spring came slowly to Los Angeles that year, like someone turning up the brightness in a room one lamp at a time. The city softened. The air warmed. And something else grew too, quietly, steadily, beneath headlines and arguments and noise. Dads Who Show Up began in the corner booth of that diner, but it didn't stay there. It spread through schools, community centers, churches, shelters, anywhere a child might sit waiting for someone who never arrived. Not every volunteer was perfect. Not every pairing worked seamlessly, but the message was simple, gentle, revolutionary. Love doesn't have to be biological to be real. Showing up is an act of love, and every child deserves someone who stays. It wasn't just fathers who came, uncles, grandfathers, mentors, neighbors, retired teachers, former soldiers, men who had lost children, men who had been children once left waiting. They showed up, not to save anyone, but to stand beside them. And suddenly, school gymnasiums, science fairs, piano recitals, spelling bees, events that had once been quiet reminders of loneliness turned into celebrations of chosen family. No one knew whose father was whose. Because it didn't matter. Love was the dance. Presence was the music. Months passed. Life settled into a rhythm. Amelia's laughter became part of Elon's every day. The way she tugged his sleeve when she was excited. The way she wrinkled her nose when deep in thought. The way she leaned her head against his shoulder when she felt safe. Elena watched, all the while, silent at first, wary, then slowly softening. Slowly believing, not because of grand gestures, but because he kept showing up, every morning, every evening, every small moment that didn't make headlines or history books. Those were the moments that changed everything. One afternoon, Amelia burst into the living room where Elon was repairing a crooked shelf with a screwdriver he was definitely using wrong. "Mom said we're going to the courthouse tomorrow," she announced. Elon blinked, pausing mid-screw. "We are?" Amelia nodded with the seriousness only children can manage. "She said it's important, and that I should wear something nice." He looked toward the kitchen where Elena stood, drying a dish, her eyes already glistening. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The next day, the courthouse smelled faintly of old wood, paper, and quiet stories that had changed lives in small rooms. They sat together on a bench outside a frosted glass door. Elon in a charcoal suit, Amelia in a soft pink dress, Elena holding both of their hands. When the clerk called their name, the world narrowed to a single hallway and a single room where sunlight slanted through dusty blinds. The judge was older. Kind eyes creased with years of knowing which moments mattered most. He looked at Amelia first. "Do you understand what today means?" Amelia nodded, her voice a whisper. "It means he's my dad forever." The judge smiled gently, then turned to Elon. "And do you understand what it means for you?" Elon didn't answer right away. His hands that had built rockets, trembled. Then he looked at Amelia. At the little girl who waited with a cardboard sign, asking for nothing except presents, he bowed his head, voice breaking. "It means," he said, "that I am finally becoming who I should have always been." The judge's pen touched the paper. The sound of the signature was the softest thing in the world. But it echoed like thunder. Amelia let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She ran to him, small arms wrapping around his neck with the force of every wish she'd ever whispered to a sky that rarely answered. Elon lifted her easily, closing his eyes as tears slipped silently across his cheek. Elena covered her face, her shoulders shaking. Relief, love, release. When they stepped out into the warm afternoon, Amelia reached up and took his hand, not lightly. Not unsure, but fully. "Ready to go home, Dad?" Elon exhaled, the title settling into him like breath after years of holding it in. "Yes," he whispered. "Let's go home," and the world didn't need to applaud. No headlines needed to be written. No cameras needed to flash, because love had already done what love always does. It stayed. It healed. It made them a family. And this time, the dance would never end.